exist.
Yeah.
So I would say the default position is when something didn't exist and it was brought into existence, then there has to be a creator.
Okay.
So the Quran in chapter 2, it mentions Kayfa takfuruna billah. How is it that you disbelieve in Allah? How is it you disbelieve in a God? So in Islam, the question is put to you. How do you not recognize there's a God?
Because the same question could be asked, how do you not recognize unicorns exist? I mean, we have drawings of unicorns.
Yeah.
Children draw them. Why do unicorns exist?
What's the necessity of unicorns existing?
It brings children comfort. It's a comforting animal.
Oh, it's nice. It looks nice. It's beautiful,
yeah,
etc.
You could say that.
But that's not a necessity.
Okay.
Is there a necessity for unicorns to exist? Okay. But I would say on the opposite, there is a necessity for a creator, because there's a creation.
Which is the universe.
Universe, ourselves. Like for example, now we are communicating with each other.
Correct.
The way we're able to articulate we have thoughts, we're able to articulate them. The way you're able to understand them, the way you're able to comprehend what I'm saying, process what I'm saying, the way you're able to respond.
Okay.
The way we're standing here breathing, the way we're looking at each other, all of these things, I would say it necessitates a creator.
Not necessarily, because you could say all of these, the fact that you can see, the fact that you can smell, the fact that you can talk, you could make the claim that all evolved.
Okay.
There are animals out there that don't have all of these
criteria.
Like you've got animals without eyes.
Yeah.
You've got animals that are not able to communicate. You've got animals that can't hear. You've got animals that are not able to breathe air, but perhaps they get their oxygen from water and so on. And all of these evolved differently to suit the environment. So perhaps we also evolved to suit our environment. Perhaps communication is something we evolved because we have a need to communicate.
Is it possible we go under that for the... I mean, I think we can... Okay.
Okay?
That is good.
Yeah.
Oh, a bit more. Okay.
Do you want me to go on this side? Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
That's what I said.
So, you have a time limit or?
No, it's
okay.
Straight for a bit.
Because I can talk for hours. But, so, when we talk about evolution, there's some things which should be established. I'm not a scientist. I don't know all the technical terms. But when we talk about evolution, we are talking about living matter over random mutations, changing from one form to another, from one species to another species.
Yes, over
a long period of time,
yeah.
And they say by natural selection. Something is there's a random mutation, and it proves to be beneficial, so therefore it stays. And then if something is not beneficial, it will die out.
Yes,
that's the general principle. This I would say from my understanding is something which cannot be proven, it cannot be demonstrated.
But we have quite a bit of evidence about that.
Yeah.
Like one of the there's fossil records.
Yeah.
For evidence in our DNA, genomic evidence.
Okay.
Like one of the things.
So what is the evidence? So what is that? Because you're saying there's evidence. For example, something which I can observe. I can observe if you have, for example, a man from Africa,
yes,
who's very tall, and he marries a European lady who's considerably short. We can observe that the children, not in all cases, but will generally come out with a color which is, or a shade of color which is in between the two, of mid-range height, not short and not tall. So we can see, okay, there's a change here in how the father looked and how the mother looked and how the child looks. We understand this. We understand, for example, you can call it industry or farming. They can evolve fruits, they can evolve vegetables. If I own horses, I can keep horses, and I have 5 male horses, 30 female horses. From the 5 horses, male horses, 2 of them are very strong, very powerful, so I only breed with them, and I only breed with the healthy women, and I get stronger horses, right? We get different types. But this idea of cross species, that we bring about a new species, I don't understand there's any evidence for this.
So you did say about horses.
Yeah.
With horses, that is artificial selection. So
Yeah.
it's us
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
the
Yeah, yeah.
evolution bit. Unless we can do a lot faster than
Yeah.
what nature does.
Yeah.
But in the case of natural selection,
Yeah.
the pressure is nature.
Yeah. But can you actually give a clear
because,
evidence of one species coming from another species?
Well, we've got
demonstrated that you can repeat it and show it again and again that this is how it happened.
We can repeat it at a smaller scale with like viruses and bacteria.
A new species, or the bacteria evolves.
Bacteria evolving.
But it evolves into what?
Into
resistant bacteria
to antibiotics. In this case,
so
antibiotics.
There's bacteria that becomes resistant
to antibiotics,
but it still remains bacteria.
It still remains bacteria.
Yeah, that's my problem. I think that this is a fact, a reality.
But
to say we have evidence for one species becoming another species, I don't understand there is evidence. I believe there's a lot of speculation, there's a lot of presumption, and also there's a lot of people who want this to be true, or they push this to be true, and they will present it to the general masses as if it's an undeniable fact, and if you don't believe in it, then you're backwards. But I don't think there's any evidence.
Right, so with that regard, I would say there's a bit of misunderstanding with what constitutes as evidence. Let's suppose there's a murder scene. Someone has been murdered.
I like this argument.
Someone has been murdered.
Yeah.
And no one's there to see the murder. You've got no witnesses. And even if you did, eyewitness is quite weak because the way we form our memories.
Yeah, we can misunderstand things. We can forget things. We're influenced. Yeah.
And the way the memory is formed, it's not really the best thing.
Yeah.
We have to we remember from what we remembered rather than remembering.
Yeah.
So a forensic scientist comes to the scene and they find blood. They find blood spatter. The way that
a weapon, fingerprints.
They may not find fingerprints, they may not find a weapon, but they find the blood spatter. And based on the way the blood spatter has been sort of distributed on the wall, they will say, oh, this gentleman was hit from behind in this sort of direction. And the murder weapon was, I don't know, a hammer or something. Because of the way the skull was
the bruising and
so
etc.
And then they find a fingerprint or something, and they recreate the scene. When you are in their jury box, you're not going to be like, well, you weren't there, so I can't convict a person because you've done a DNA test. Show me how this person was killed. Where's the video? You can't.
The reason why I like your example is because I would say it worked in our favor. Once you see that a murder has taken place, you automatically assumed there has to be a murderer. So you didn't presume that it's possible that the blood splattered, the brain was fractured by chance or something. You actually believe that someone physically, or first they made that choice to do the action. Sometimes the person, for example, they hit someone with the hammer, the example you gave, they hit someone with the hammer, but the intent wasn't to kill the person. But they intended to hit them. They intended to pick up the weapon, they intended to hit them, and the person's damage and the blood splattering was because someone caused it. There was intent, there was ability behind his action. So I would say once you give these examples, without any eyewitnesses, without anyone seeing, you know by necessity there was a murderer.
And why wouldn't you know? I mean, I suppose you could always, the defense could always claim they fell down and they hit the head on the hammer. So how would you solve?
But you never presumed that, did you?
I didn't, because I had a forensic scientist that did the investigation for me.
Yeah.
But you can't rule it out without.
So yeah, but I think you slightly changed. You moved your position when I put it back to you that you presumed there was a murderer.
Because of the evidence given by the forensic science.
No, because I'll be polite. Because of you walked into, you trapped yourself, and then you slightly changed your argument to suit the situation. Because you presumed there's a dead body, there's a wound, there's blood splattered. You presumed there has to be a murderer.
There's a murder weapon.
So that's our natural. I would say that's the default position. When there's a creation that exists and it's made up in a manner like this, where we have the ability to breathe, the ability to eat food, to digest, to remove waste, the body repairs itself, the way it grows, the way it becomes old, all of these things indicate a knowledgeable, powerful, self-aware creator. That's the normal default position.
Yes, to an extent it could be. When you look at the human body, you think
someone made it.
It is a wonderful piece of thing.
You think it's reasonable to say that this came about by random processes and natural selection, or do you think that someone who simply doesn't want to accept a God, doesn't want to submit to a God, that they would try to propose that in order to avoid the obvious?
Well, I would say, based on the amount of evidence we have with how us and chimpanzees share a common descent, I would say there was a time when both of us had a common ancestor.
What's the evidence?
Well, you got archaeological evidence, so you got bones.
But what's the evidence that we came from a common descent? What's the evidence?
So I'm getting.
I mean, they tell you, and they put a lot of pressure. Like, you know, have you seen that picture? They were put in museums. They were put in educational books, where you have a monkey-like creature, and then you will see eventually it will evolve, and then it becomes like a Neanderthal with a club on it, and then you will see a man walking. And you know that's made up.
I think that's,
you know that's made up.
Yeah, of course. I think that misinterprets how evolution works.
But that's the evidence they give us. But that's how they program us from a young age. But I would still go back to. But
I think that sort of says it. The evolution is a sort of linear process, but it's not. There's a lot of branches around. So we are not.
But but the thing is, can you actually prove it, or is it just an idea that's waiting to be proved?
It is true.
Okay, what's the proof? What is the proof what is the observable proof, repeatable observable proof that one species can evolve into another species?
Okay, so we've got species in between we've got a lot of other
for example,
species. So you've got Homo, just means man.
Where are they?
We have Homo neanderthalis. We've got Homo erectus. There's
no. The fact of having many different species existing, the fact of having many different species existing, and the fact of them being similar in certain ways, but different.
In other ways.
How did you conclude that meant that one evolved from the other?
Right. That alone doesn't prove that. Just the.
Can I say basically it's how you interpret the data.
But I'm coming back to that. That alone doesn't prove evolution.
Okay.
It's quite a remarkable piece of evidence, but it doesn't prove evolution, because not every species will turn into a fossil. It takes a lot of effort for something to turn into fossils, because it has to be layered in a certain way.
But is it observable? Is it observable and repeatable that we can witness it?
What, fossilization?
No, not fossil. I understand there's fossils. But I'm saying that the process of one species becoming another species.
You can't observe it because it takes such a long time.
Okay. So, but do you have evidence for it?
So then, I'm coming to the DNA.
My question, is it evidence, or is it the way people are reading the data due to some idea which they already have?
I'm coming to the DNA evidence.
Okay, no, but answer that question first.
Is it evidence?
Is it evidence in itself, or is it how people interpret the data?
I think it's evidence itself, because the way science works.
Can I give you another possible way of interpreting the data?
Yeah, sure.
That all of these things were made by the same creator.
That's plausible.
Okay, so why did you prefer one over the other?
Because the way religions, Abrahamic religions, talk about the creation of man, it is a lot less believable than the way evolution talks about. I think we can talk about this, but I think first we have to establish: is there a necessity for a God or not? Before we talk about... Let's grant you the necessity.
No. As I said in the beginning, there's no point granting it, because I can prove you, for example, just an example, if I prove you the superiority of Islam and you say, yes, if there is a God, it would be Islam, but I don't believe in a God anyway, what's the point? But let me just...
But even if you prove the necessity of God, even if you prove the necessity of Islamic God, that doesn't move you away from the idea of God, man just wasn't created from clay.
Okay, that's fine, but let's look. But my point is, when we talk about I'm saying it can't be observably demonstrated that one species becomes another species.
No, but
when we talk about evidence
of it happening in the past.
No, we don't have evidence.
Well, we've got DNA evidence. I've only shown you fossil evidence.
No,
I've not come to DNA evidence.
No problem. Let's DNA evidence. We'll come to DNA evidence, but one thing. But even then, before we talk about evolution, do we come from a common ancestry? Do we come from is there one tree of life, etc., or is it multiple evolution taking place at the same time from different sources? How do you explain dead matter becoming alive?
Dead matter becoming alive?
Like how would you explain, for example, dust, rocks, stones, etc., now becoming alive? Like, the ability to grow, the ability to take in nutrition, the ability to repair itself. How do you explain life itself from an evolutionary point of view?
So this is not much to do with evolution, but it's rather to do with
basically to have evolution.
Amino acids came to because we all made from the same building blocks. We all made from amino acids. Us, animals, plants, everything. You could claim,
but life.
Like that.
No, but life. How do you explain life? Like even if you have
amino acids.
Okay. Even if you have amino acids, I don't know much about it. do they have life in them? Do they grow? Do they multiply?
They are molecules.
Okay.
They do multiply.
And so they grow.
They don't grow.
They multiply.
They take
some kind of subsistence. Do they have to have some kind of nourishment, etc.?
They are molecules.
Do they have to be nourished? Do they have to have some?
No, they're just like molecules. So they.
But they're alive.
Amino acids.
But are they alive?
No, they are not alive on their own.
So how do they
give rise to life? What we call molecules of life are amino acids.
Okay. But do they? But how do they split then?
They don't.
Or how do they multiply then?
So amino acids exist on their own in nature.
Okay.
But when they are part of a chain, like a DNA chain or RNA chain, it probably did start off as an RNA chain because it's much simpler. DNA is double. So when they are part of DNA, they have this self-replicating property.
Do they carry information?
They do.
Okay. This is the point. Whenever we come across our own human experience, whenever we come across information, it requires someone to give that information. From our own experience, from what we can
observe.
Yes. So when it comes to these amino acids or DNA, where did the information come from?
In terms of information,
did the information to, I don't know, exist or to operate as they operate? Did that information, did it come from nowhere?
I think
was that random as well? Was there an information giver? What's reasonable?
I don't think it came as in. I don't believe it was it just sporadically went from nothing.
Not information, but information.
I think it happened super slowly, and it happened chain by chain.
But where did the information come from?
I don't know.
Yeah, so the thing is, there are other Muslims who you will meet who are more educated than myself, or even Christians who talk about these subjects who are more educated than myself. But I know this is, I presented it very badly, but they always go back to this initial argument that if there's life, there should be a life giver. If there's something which exists, there should be something which brought it into existence. Something which didn't exist and then came into existence, we need something to bring it to existence. If there's information, it requires someone to give information.
But you are saying...
I think even however far you take it back,
would you agree that this information giver is, if it was this all-powerful, all-knowing God, he would make a perfect creation?
That's a second issue. That's a secondary issue.
Would you agree that he would make a perfect creation?
I would say whether this God is a Muslim God, a Christian God, a Hindu God, whether it's a perfect God, whether it's a kind God, whether it's a just God, whether it's an evil God, all of this is secondary information. Because for example, a Muslim says something in Islam, and I say, for example, in Islam says you have to do this, and then a person says, I don't like what Islam teaches, therefore I think there's not a God. Or I don't like what Christianity teaches, therefore I don't think there's a God. This is all secondary. I think what first you have to establish, there's a necessity, there has to be a God. There has to be, when I say a God, I'm talking about basically three things. It must be something which is self-aware, it has knowledge, it has ability, and it has intent. There has to be something which exists with knowledge, ability, and intent. And it had the intent to bring about this existence which we are living in, however small it is, however minute it is. It had the intent, it had the ability, and it had the knowledge to do it. For me, that's the default position, that's the natural position. That's why I said in the Quran it mentions كَيْفَ تَكْفُرُونَ بِاللَّهِ. How do you disbelieve in Allah? Like how is it you can say that there isn't a God?
Because I just don't have enough evidence to believe in such a God. And I would say the way that this God has transmitted his message is not the best, to say the least.
Okay, no problem. But that's the message. But I'm talking about a God existing. See, the thing is, when we say you don't have enough evidence to say that there is a God, I'm saying you don't have any evidence, let alone enough evidence to say that we can have this universe, we can have this human life, we can have without a God. I don't think you can demonstrate anything which...
But I can demonstrate, I mean, I could go, you didn't let me go into evolution, how we all came here.
Yeah.
But let's move a step back from evolution, how the whole universe came into existence. Now, we probably don't know where the universe came from. We may never know that. But that doesn't leave the door open to God just by default, because then you are reducing God down to just a default.
I'm saying that's the base position.
You are reducing God down to the gap in our knowledge. It's almost like saying, well, I suppose evolution could explain how humans came.
Yeah.
I suppose how planets are formed. We know how planets form from stardust. So then you bring it all the way back, and the only thing we can't explain is where did the universe come from. So that's the only gap that's left, and you don't want to take this argument.
No. The reason why I'm smiling, because it's it's the theory called the God of the gaps.
God of the gaps, yeah.
For example, people in the past they believe that in order to get a good crop, you need to sacrifice your daughter and a virgin from the village, and you need to put the blood on the land. Or when it thunders, it means God is angry, etc. And then the idea is, as mankind increased in their knowledge, they began to explain these things, and the gaps got less and less and less. But I would say you have the science of the gaps. You have so much things which you don't know. So much things. How life started, how this process took place, how the universe started. And for your point is saying, well, we don't think it's God, but we don't know how it happened. But hopefully science will tell us one day, and we'll keep researching. But we don't think it's God. But how did life happen? We don't know how life happened. We can't give you any definite answer.
Abiogenesis.
It could be this. It could.
Abiogenesis.
It's definite.
I'm just giving you an answer.
What's
abiogenesis?
What's abiogenesis?
The existence, the creation of life from non-organic molecules. So organic molecules are amino acids and stuff we made from. Non-organic stuff are things like rocks.
Okay, but how did it happen? Did it just happen spontaneously? Was it random?
Well,
can you prove it?
Or explain the process, but they have demonstrated the creation of a cell
from nothing.
From inorganic.
From nothing.
Not from nothing, because there wasn't nothing. There was Earth.
Yeah.
There was.
Where did the Earth come from?
Oh, then you move it back. Then it's not the creation of life.
Yeah.
Then you move it back to where did inorganic matter come from. If you can demonstrate the creation of organic matter from inorganic matter, then you push it a step further, and you're like, but
so this is the science of the gaps.
No, not necessarily.
Yeah. Whenever you can't answer something, you say, well, we need to do research, in the future we'll find out.
That's generally what happens, yeah.
Yeah, so it is the science of the gaps.
I wouldn't call it that, because science always has gaps.
Okay, so go back to the amino acids, and you say it has information.
acid itself doesn't have information.
I would say the default position is that if there's information, there should be a giver of the information. There should be a source of the information. That's all our human experience knows. But you would say, I don't think it can be a God because of the Abrahamic God done this and etc. etc. Therefore, we don't know, but hopefully we will find out in the future. So your accusation of God of the gaps is actually science of the gaps.
There's no such thing as science of the gaps.
Why isn't there?
Because science never claims to have the answers for everything. Science sort of examines itself constantly and changes things based on new evidence.
But how we use the words is, but what I mean to say, if you don't have an answer and you can't explain something, and then you say, hopefully by the scientific process, we will find out in the future.
I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm saying, for now, we have quite a good understanding of how...
A definite.
There's no such thing as definite.
Okay.
In science, it's nothing 100%.
Provable evidence, for example, that the information was able to come about randomly. Can you demonstrate that?
No. I can't demonstrate the information came randomly.
Okay, so that's my thing. When it's accused of what they call God of the gaps, whenever a theist can't answer something, we say God done it. I would say that science has the same problem, where they're saying, well, we don't think it's a God, but we don't know how it happened. We don't know how it's possible it happened. We don't have any reasonable answer. But hopefully we will find out as we progress.
As far as I know, I mean, you can search literature, but as far as I know, science just never brings God into question at all. It's never a thing where you just say, God
no, science doesn't.
Science didn't do it.
I know. I'm not talking science. But my point is, as I mentioned in the beginning, the Quran says, كَيْفَ تَكْفُرُونَ بِاللَّهِ. How is it that you disbelieve in a creator, in Allah? And I'm saying I don't see any reasonable explanation of how we exist in this form, how the universe exists, how we have seasons, how we have the alternation of the day and the night, how we have the water cycle, how we have the energy from the sun, etc. I don't see any reasonable answer other than there has to be a creator, there has to be a being which has knowledge, ability and intent. I don't see any other answer. I would say back to the example you gave when we found the dead body with the skull caved in and the blood splattered on the wall. Your first instinct was, which you gave the example, your first instinct was to find out we don't have eyewitnesses, we don't know who done it, but we need to follow the evidence to find out who the culprit was. And this is what we presented to the jury in the court. But my point is, without knowing who the murderer is, your first understanding was there has to be someone who done the murder.
Because this is my human understanding, based on
we don't want any other understanding, just a human understanding.
This is based on my human experience. If you go into a real courtroom where people try to remove their human experience from the profession of proving...
But when you brought up the argument, your first point was to find out who the murderer was by following the evidence. My point is not who the murderer is. My point is that you understood there had to be a murderer. So I'm saying when we have the universe, I'm saying that the natural default position is there has to be a creator.
But in my example, the example I gave, my human experience told me that there must be a murderer. But there is another option. He fell.
He fell.
And he
fell, and his brain was caved in.
There could be a possibility.
And there was blood splattered on the one side.
And there was a murder weapon on the floor. There could be a possibility.
And who would bring this possibility except the defence?
Well, perhaps even that possibility could perhaps even be questioned by the forensic scientists. They have to eliminate that.
Do you have any examples of this happening?
I mean, I don't study law, so
No, because I would say this position taken would be simply to try to seek a way to deny the obvious. The same way I would say the atheist position is a position which is trying to deny the obvious, that there has to be a creator.
If we have good enough evidence to prove that there was a culprit that did the crime, then it doesn't hurt us.
No, but your first point was your first point until what happened was you brought the example.
But it doesn't hurt it to consider it as a possibility, does it?
No. I'll tell you. What happened was when the conversation started and you brought this point, you were talking about who the murderer is and how the jury would find out who the murderer is. And then I said to you, I feel that your argument goes against you. And I said, because you understood there had to be a murderer, the same way the universe and the creation, I would say, necessitates a creator. Then, once I said this, then you shifted and said, but it could be without a murderer. So I feel you're...
I'm just giving another layer to...
But why did you bring that other...
idea.
But you brought the another layer to counter my argument. That's the point. There was a bias and intent behind it.
I see.
Yeah, that's the way I saw it. So the same way, that's the natural disposition, the natural default position of human beings. The way we understand, the way we observe things around us is the alternation of the day and the night, the changing of the seasons, the rain coming down, the crops growing, the energy from the sun, etc. The way we reproduce, the way we think, the way we remember, the way we communicate, the way we breathe, the way we digest. All of these things, the natural disposition is there has to be a creator. But then, when people they don't want to accept a creator, I'm going to say due to arrogance, or they don't want to submit to a creator, then they will begin to look for alternatives, which even if they don't make sense, and even if they can't actually prove it, they will continue putting them forward in that manner. That's why atheism, or I think agnostic is a bit of a coward atheist. He's atheist, but he doesn't want to take on the responsibility and the burden, so he says maybe. But I think it's a very modern idea.
Right, so what you said is the fact that there's wind blowing, the fact that there's water cycle, the fact that we've got the changing of the seasons, the day and night, all of that, the fact that we can communicate, the fact that voice comes out of my mouth, the fact that I can breathe.
Breathing, digesting.
But
I would say this necessitates
every single one of them can be explained by natural processes without bringing God into this.
I don't think it can.
It can.
I don't think it can, because it's for me, all of this necessitates a creator, a being which has knowledge, ability, and has intent.
So if I remove your lungs, are you able to breathe?
No.
Why not? If God is the one that gives you the breath.
You're really going to have to explain that question.
If I remove your lungs, are you able to breathe? If God is the one that gives you your breath, then I haven't removed God, I've just removed lungs.
Okay, the one who created me, who created the air at the right percentage for me to breathe, he created me with...
There's nothing to do with us.
Oh, no. He created my lungs to breathe. So it's not a question of can God provide food for me without eating? Oh, if I can't stop eating and survive, therefore there isn't a God. I don't understand your point. Like the God has made a system where there's air to breathe, and we have lungs to breathe it. And then once I breathe this air, my heart will pump the blood and take the oxygen around my body. That's the system.
So God created the system and then removed himself from that system. Is that what you say? So he's not constantly interfering with the system.
No, that's
because otherwise, if I take off your lungs, then God can just instantly give you new lungs. So.
Who God is? Is he a good God? Is he a bad God? Is he an evil God? Is he a Muslim God or the God of Islam? Is he an Abrahamic God? That's all secondary. That's all secondary. The initial point is the necessity. There has to be a creator, and I think that that's the first point we need to discuss. Then, if we understand this and we agree on this, not for the sake of argument or not for I'll grant you that, then we can move on.
Because when we initially started, I asked you that if there is a design, there must be a design, and you agreed when you thought about it. So
generally, yes.
Yes. So that's what he's saying.
Generally, so can you give an example when there isn't?
Isn't, yeah.
Things that we haven't seen. Stuff we've observed, I could say there is a creator because I've observed the process. So, say a phone. Obviously, I know the phone is created by humans because I can always see a human created phone.
So you have more evidence and more reason for there to be a creator. By what you observed?
Yeah.
I've never observed a creator create the universe.
No. The idea that something didn't exist and it was brought into existence. All your human experience and observation has told you there should be something with knowledge, ability and intent to bring that thing into existence. That's
human experience would be that.
Yeah. And you cannot give any example of human experience, not things which you don't know, we're not aware of, but human experience. You can't give any example of something bringing itself into existence. Without
perhaps subatomic particles, but they are too abstract.
But I don't think you can demonstrate it either.
I think they are demonstrating there in. I think
they're interpreting the data the way they want to interpret the data, or they're reading the data they want to, but they can't observe it.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say science just interprets data the way they want to.
You don't think so? You don't? It never happens.
Sometimes it does, but that's disingenuous.
No, but it can happen.
It can, yeah, but I wouldn't say that's the main factor of science. I wouldn't say scientists just do an experiment just because they want to prove something.
No, I don't. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that there is an interpretation of data, and if the person, for example, doesn't believe in a God or doesn't want to believe in a God, then they can interpret the data one way, and then you can have someone who believes in God who would interpret the data in another way. That's my point. It's not something which is hard and fast. Like, for example, just a simple example, a paracetamol. You can have someone with pain in their body, you can have someone with a temperature, and you can give them a paracetamol day after day, day after day, day after day, and what we've experienced is the temperature will go down and the pain will go in most cases. So it's something which is repeatable and observable. But some of these things which you're mentioning, I think it's very specific and it's how the data is interpreted.
So you only accept science when it's repeated?
No, I think that when you say that it's a fact and it's a reality that one species can change to another species, I think you have to present evidence which is repeatable and observable. Otherwise, you're just interpreting the data the way you're led to.
Well,
because I think all these things about multiple species existing.
People are interpreting the data in the same way, even though they're doing it separately.
Are they though?
Independently?
I don't think they are.
So you don't think peer review is independent?
No, I'm only as a non-scientific outsider, but I've seen documentaries where scientists have been interviewed, and scientists who they have attended a university, they have a certain position, and when they don't talk about God, they don't talk about the Christian God, they don't talk about the Muslim God or etc. But when they talk about evidence of intelligent design, they say that their works are not published, their research is not published, that they can lose their position in the university.
Like Isaac Newton.
I heard this is, well, not even Isaac Newton. There's a documentary. I mean, always information is presented how people want to present it, but there's a documentary where a Jewish I don't know if you call him a journalist or documentary. I think it's Richard Stein. It's called No Intelligence Allowed. And he visits many universities in America. He visits many scientists who said that when they spoke about intelligent design, their works were not published. They lost their positions, and etc., etc. So I think that there is a certain idea, but
how is intelligent design going to help a scientist do their work?
No, it's not. It's not like, I'll give you an example. If I'm sick and I go to a hospital and I'm given medicine which was, I don't know if you call it, it was made or invented, or the doctor is an atheist or a Hindu, I don't mind. I don't mind. I don't mind. Because it's like the paracetamol. Like for example, I don't believe in Hinduism, but if a Hindu discovered the paracetamol, or an atheist discovered the paracetamol, it wouldn't bother me. Why? I take it because it's been observable and repeated that paracetamol is good to get rid of pain and to lower your temperature. But if someone is saying that there is a God or there isn't a God, I would look at what they believe or what they don't believe. But I think these issues can get very complicated. But I still think it's a very simple argument. If something didn't exist and it came into existence, like the universe, like ourselves, I would say the only reasonable, logical explanation is there has to be a being with knowledge, ability and intent that brought us into existence. I don't think that there's any other option.
Okay, so let's suppose that's one of the possibilities.
Bring me a second possibility that actually makes sense and can be demonstrated.
Well, the second one could be the universe before the Big Bang, the point of singularity, the universe always existed like that, perhaps? It could be a case
I don't know enough about science, but
it could be a case of there was another universe. That universe died, became like a big, the big crunch where you sort of.
Okay, let's make it simple, rather than I don't know. I think they say.
So if let's say we do grant God.
What did they say? 14 billion years ago.
13.8 billion years ago.
So let's grant the fact that we were not there. We were not there before it happened. But let's go back to my simple point. Something didn't exist, and it came into existence. I say or even if the form has been changed from one form to another in an intelligent manner, I would still say, from what it still necessitates a being which has knowledge, ability, and intent. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist.
But why would that being?
Because you can't show me any. You can't demonstrate anything other.
Let's grant that.
We can't grant it. We can't grant it.
Let's say that's the case.
Accept it.
No, I can't accept it because there are other ways.
Well, like what?
It could have just.
But can you demonstrate it? Like, okay.
If we go back to that,
leave the universe. Leave the universe. That's a no.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. We could say
we can do that one.
God, and you could say he's outside space and time.
No, I wouldn't say that. But look, my point is, leave the universe because we weren't there when it came into existence.
Of course, yeah.
Leave the first man because we weren't there.
That's fine.
But just this simple formula which I've given, something which didn't exist, and it came into existence. I'm saying, from all we know, there has to be a being with knowledge, ability and intent. I'm saying that is I don't know of another option.
That could be the case.
Can you forget the universe, because as we said we weren't there, forget the first human beings because we weren't there. Can you tell me of something which you know, which is observable by yourself, which didn't exist, it came into existence and there wasn't a being behind it with knowledge? Yeah, that's my point. So that's my point. If we leave all the technical names and situation, we just get it down to the smallest point. I'm saying if there's a universe built on this pattern, if there's a universe, if we exist, built on what we know, there has to be something behind it which has ability, knowledge, ability, and intent. That's it. And I would say this is not something we can grant. I think this is a necessity.
That's yeah. I agree that something could have. That could be.
No, could have. You need. That's good. As in, it's possible to could have.
It is possible.
But
yeah.
give me an alternative.
The universe could have always been there.
But demonstrate it. No. I didn't say that.
You can't demonstrate God.
No.
Therefore
But I said something which didn't exist and came into existence. Has anyone said the universe has always existed? I mean, people have said it, but is this the scientific position?
No, because we can't know anything what happened before that singularity point.
But that singularity point is when the universe came into existence.
No. That singularity point is when space and time expanded.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's time t equals 0. That's when
I don't know
time
this stuff.
started to expand. Well, we don't know what happened before. We haven't got a clue what happened before. Maybe we never will know what happened before. It's very difficult.
Science of the gaps.
Not necessarily. I would say, because science of the gaps would be to come up with an idea without having any evidence. And because there is no evidence of what came before that singularity.
So do you have evidence?
We are not filling the gap with anything.
Do you have so do you have any evidence? Do you emphasis on the word? Do you have any evidence of something which didn't exist?
No.
Coming into existence without a being with knowledge, capability. So that therefore the idea that there should be a God is the only.
I wouldn't say the only, because then you have to take.
So then you have to give me an example of something which came into. Yeah. So that's no evidence. That's no position. How can you have a possibility with no evidence?
Yeah, but you're
unless you're
how can you have a possibility with no other option?
Well, no evidence unless you're appealing to God of the gaps.
I'm not appealing to God of the gaps.
You are, because you said that it would be science of the gaps. You said you'll be appealing to science of the gaps if you had a position which doesn't have evidence. And then I asked you, do you have evidence that something which didn't exist come into existence without knowledge, ability? But you still think it's possible. So that's
in our current universe.
So that's science of the gaps. So that's science of the gaps.
In our current universe, it's not. But
we're only talking about our unit. We're only talking about our existence.
Before the singularity point.
And do you have evidence for that being possible?
It's not.
You don't.
It's not even part of our universe.
You're just what you're doing.
The laws of the universe were a lot different.
What you're doing. Do you have evidence of that?
You can mathematically prove it, yeah. To say the laws were different when t equals 0 at the singularity point, yeah, you could.
Okay, that's beyond me.
You could.
I mean, you're putting forth a philosophical explanation. It's not a scientific explanation. Because mathematics is philosophical.
Says who?
It's metaphysical.
Anyway, let's.
Okay, yeah, I suppose, yeah. Yeah.
There's something interesting. I think, with all due respect, I think this conversation can go round in circles and so.
Yeah. So I just want to pick something. Even if there is a God, why is this God Islamic?
No. That's not our point. Our point is, first, someone has to recognize there is a God, and then we will move on.
I'm saying there is a possibility of a God. I can't say for certain because I've got no evidence.
As I said to you in the beginning, as a person who doesn't believe in democracy, there's no point telling me is Labour better or Conservative better. First, you need to tell me why democracy is the best system. So, if someone doesn't believe in God, even if they just grant it for the argument, there's no point us discussing. Like, for example, if I convince you Islam is better than Christianity, just for example, because I'm Muslim. So if I convince you that Islam is better, and then you're going to ask me, if I grant you the fact that Islam is better, which is better, Sunni or Shi'i? It's on you. So you need that foundation. I just want to mention one point. In the Quran, chapter 52, Allah mentions أم خلقوا من غير شيء أم هم الخالقون أم خلق السماوات والأرض بل لا يوقنون. Allah mentions, he mentions أم خلقوا من غير, were they created for nothing? Or did they create themselves? Or did they create the heavens and the earth, the planet we're living on? Then what I find interesting is, obviously from an Islamic point of view, nothing cannot create something. Something which doesn't exist can't create itself. So we would say by necessity.
Unless that thing is God.
No, because God is not a creation. God, He's always existed. That's our point. By necessity. But that's a separate thing. But so when Allah He mentioned, were they created for nothing? We understand that nothing can't create something. Did they create themselves? We understand that something which didn't exist cannot bring itself into existence. Even if we exist, there has to be a creator for the heavens and the earth. But then it's the last part of the verse which I find amazing, because this is from we obviously believe in a creator who revealed it, but from a worldly point of view, they would say, okay, this came from a man 1,400 years ago, Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, who lived in the desert. He said something, for us it's revelation, but the ayah says at the end, بَلْ لَا يُوقِنُونَ. It says, after mentioning it says, but rather they have no certainty. I would say those people who do not recognize a creator and submit to a creator, they will always live a life with no certainty. It could be this, we think this is possible, we're hoping that we will find out in the future. They will never have certainty. And then when we find, we're living in a time of scientific development. There's so many things beneficial that science has come up with. Transport, communication, etc., etc. I mean, obviously there's harmful things as well, but we all benefit from science. When we have this level of science technology, but the Quran is saying 1,400 years ago, those people who do not accept a creator on this issue, they will have no certainty. I would say that this is such a strong evidence of the truthfulness of the Quran when it said that those people who don't accept the creator, they will never have any certainty. And when we found 1,400 years later, they still have no certainty.
So you're saying people that accept the creator always have a certainty?
Certainty, shall I go on holiday to Turkey or shall I go? No, not certainty. But certainty that
then it wouldn't be a belief.
No. Certainty that there has to be a creator and there is a creator. I don't have any doubt about it. Like someone's going to ask, is the Abrahamic God the true one or that's a secondary question, but the reality that there has to be a creator, I think is certain. There's no doubt about it.
So you have no doubt about the creator?
No, because I don't see any other reasonable, intelligent.
You don't see any other reasonable, then you believe in the creator?
No. I would say I believe in a creator for a number of reasons. Then after that belief, I would say, and I don't see any other alternative.
But if there was any other alternative?
But there isn't.
If there was?
But there isn't. So basically, we have a certainty. And because you're saying there's a possibility of something which has no evidence, which cannot be proved, we're waiting to find out.
I think we're just bringing it back to God with the gaps here, because you are saying
No.
there isn't, and I'm saying, but what if there was in the future? And you say, yeah, but there isn't. It's almost like saying in the past when seizures were thought to be demonic possessions, and then someone must have been like, yeah, but must be something to do with the head, the brain, and they're like, no, it's demonic possessions. Yeah, but what if in the future someone said, no, it's demonic possessions? So you are kind of playing the same game.
No,
you're saying there is no other possibility, therefore.
Okay, but you as a scientist.
I'm not a scientist.
Okay, you representing the belief of the agnostic or the atheist. can you present an even reasonable possibility that something which didn't exist was brought into existence without knowledge, ability? Yes, so for me it's a certainty. And it's not a certainty which, until I find out something else, it's just a fact.
Let me just... of evidence is not evidence of absence.
Okay, nice principle, but I don't think it applies here. Let me just say, without going in, my first point is there has to be a creator. By the fact that we exist, there has to be a creator. That's one. Second, I would say it's something which is a natural disposition of mankind to recognize and to seek out a creator. That's why you'll find in every time, every history, people, until very recently, people have always looked out for a higher being, whether they called it a different name, whether they believed in it this way or that way, etc. But mankind has this natural desire to seek out a God. Even they've done scientific tests on children, and they said the children is naturally disposed to recognize a creator.
Yeah, but children are naturally disposed to believe anything you tell them to. There've been experiments where, do you know the famous experiment where they got a group of children and put a bowl of candy in front of them, and they told them, do not eat the sweets, and obviously the children go and eat them. But then they told them there's an imaginary person sitting on that chair. Don't eat the sweets because they can see you, and the children didn't.
Oh no!
So I suppose children are very predisposed to believe anything.
If you read the experiment which was done, it wasn't this simple, or it wasn't set up to. It was the fact of that when you ask children for certain things around them, they will always recognize a purpose. Like if I give an example, when we talk about the sun, as a believer in God, as a theist, I would say the Creator has created the sun in order to be a source of light, a source of energy, a source of heat, and it's been created with that purpose. An atheist, they may not be aware, but they would have to say the sun exists because it's a random, it exists out of randomness. And it just so happens as a byproduct of existing, we have light, we have energy, we have heat. But that's not the purpose of it. It doesn't have a purpose. So the understanding was that children, regardless of their religious background, even if they're from atheist backgrounds, even without asking them, do you believe in God? Whenever they looked at things around them, they recognized there must be a purpose. It must have been made with a purpose. And from this, they understood that this is the natural disposition of human beings to give purpose and reason to things. Whereas atheists, their purpose and reasoning, they're quite artificial.
So what is the purpose? I suppose, things do have a purpose. What is the purpose of the human immunodeficiency virus? What's the purpose of HIV?
Okay, then you're going to ask the question, okay, if there is a God, is he good or bad? Is he evil, etc.?
No, that's not what I'm asking. What's the purpose of HIV?
But that's the point you're going in. Like, look, if there is a God, why is there suffering? If there is a God, why do bad things happen? If God is all loving, if he's all... These all come secondary. First, you have to see the necessity of a God. That's why I wouldn't really go down this subject matter.
No, but you're saying everything has a purpose. So I'm just saying, what's the purpose of HIV?
Okay. I mean, HIV, it kills a person. Maybe perhaps that's the purpose.
Not always, but
yeah.
One of the things is it kills a person. Another thing is...
So can that be the purpose?
So God just magically made a virus in the whenever he came, 60s or 70s.
See what this is doing, this is like working backwards. Okay, let's say for example, in Islam permits a man to marry 4 wives. I don't agree that a man should have 4 wives, therefore I don't think there's a God. I see suffering, I see children dying when they're young, I see HIV. Therefore, if there was a God, I don't think a God would do this, therefore there's no God. All of this is secondary.
I just made the claim because you said the sun has a purpose. So I'm saying what's the purpose of something like HIV?
There has to be a purpose to it. But first, if there's a purpose, there has to be a creator. That was my point, why the scientists believe that children are naturally disposed to recognize the creator.
Your children may recognize a purpose to everything, but not everything has a purpose.
Okay. I disagree with you.
Some things are just there because they are. HIV doesn't contribute anything to this world, literally nothing.
Why does it have to contribute to have a purpose? That's a positive purpose. You can still have a negative purpose. Anyway, if you don't mind, I think the conversation so far has reached its natural conclusion.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna agree.
No, we're not here to convince you or anyone, but we're here to present our position, our perspective. Thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure. I did enjoy the conversation. We're normally here on Saturday if you want to ever come back and visit us. Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
No problem. All the best. Take care.
God, existence of God.
The young man, he was very polite. He wasn't rude. May Allah guide him. But our position is that there has to be a creator. And as Allah mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah, كَيْفَ تَكْفُرُونَ بِاللَّهِ. How is it you disbelieve in a creator? So when someone is an atheist or agnostic, we would say that the onus is not upon us to prove there's a God, even though there's many reasons and many evidence to show that there has to be a God. They have to give us an alternative. How could we exist? How could the universe exist? How could this system exist without a creator? And I don't see that they have a sufficient answer. Rather, they have, it could be this or it could be that, or we're waiting to see. So, alhamdulillah. And the young man, as you can see, he wanted us to discuss why do we believe in the Islamic God over the Christian God or the Hindu God, or explaining if there is a God, why would he do this? But I think until someone accepts the necessity of a God, that conversation is just, I don't know, like an intellectual exercise which doesn't really doesn't bear fruit. Because obviously I'm a Muslim, so I'm going to say this. If I can demonstrate to him that Islam is true, Islam is perfect, it is possible that he may say, well, it means that there must be a God. But at the same time, it's most likely that someone in his position will just say, oh, that's really nice, but I don't believe in God anyway. So that was why we tried to keep the conversation, the necessity of a God, of a creator. And just to make it in a nutshell, the argument put forward by the scholars is, when something doesn't exist and it's brought into existence, or something is transformed from one state to another in a beneficial way, it necessitates a being behind it which has knowledge, capability, and intent. If these things are absent, that thing coming into existence would never take place. That's the simple argument. And I don't see that anyone can give an alternative or respond to that argument. And Allah knows best.